Hi, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Wayne's Football channel again. This morning I received some messages from my friends and they are dissatisfied with Chelsea's performance last evening. The reason is, Chelsea did not show possession-based control throughout the match and they did not give a thrilling performance at all. After watching the whole match, I understand why it let some of the Chelsea fans down. Yet, if you study the game thoroughly, probably you'll reach a contrary conclusion. As you can see, Chelsea did want a large share of possession in the first half and opted for long passes in order to result in a quick attempt on goal. There are two things about such tactics. First, Chelsea attempt to get into the opposing half or make an early cross within 3 to 5 seconds. Such tactics are just like making a wave, keep passing the ball upfield, avoid backward passes and tempo control. It's okay to slow down in their own half, but quick attempts on goal must be made once they get into the opposing half. Second, Chelsea tried to press into the opposing half. Even if an error occurs if Chelsea was forced to hold onto the ball or an extended time, Chelsea front field players would still avoid advancing to the top of the opposing penalty box. They would make forward runs starting from the 30 yards from the opposing goal. Even midfield players would continuously attempt forward runs to find themselves at the receiving end of long passes into the opposing penalty box. They do not want to make use of short passes to build up getting into the penalty box or to break the dense defense. Instead, Chelsea players make forward runs into the opposing penalty box starting from 35-40 yards away from goals and grants ineffective possession to Brighton, since they are playing 3 defender formation today and hence lacking penetration ability against defense. I would say Brighton chose to cooperate today. Not only did they give up compacting their defensive line, but also they took the initiative and started playing possession football and full court press on their attacking phase. So Brighton fell right into the hands of Lampard, which proved Lampard's calculations correct today. Chelsea doesn't need to face a compact defensive line for most of the time, and they can play a mid-tempo game with conservative attitude. You may ask, why did Lampard opt to play such tactics today? It was in fact well reasoned. Please take a look at the available players in the Chelsea squad. You will see there's only one player with space, Callum Hudson-Odoi. You may also say you can play him as a starting right wing, Mount on the left, and Kai Havertz as the CAM, and Chelsea can play the 4-2-3-1 possession-based attack formation. Yes, I do agree with that up to this point, but choosing this tactic is not without consequences. If Lampard really chose to use this tactic, Chelsea would have no substitute high-speed winger and would greatly limit their tactical flexibility. Or once, if they were out of luck and failed to break the opening deadlock, they would also not able to maintain their winger stamina level by substituting another high-speed player in the second half, which might become a problem as well. Therefore, the best way to deal with this game with the available players on hand is not to take the initiative to play possession-based football. It would be better to play it down and give up the possession to their opponent. In this way, Chelsea would not need to play the 4-2-3-1 formation. They can keep one more high-speed winger on the bench, and they can keep themselves more flexible for substitution in the second half. At the same time, Chelsea can make use of the great speed of Timo Werner and Mason Mount to play effective counter-attacking football. The only problem is whether Brighton will cooperate. As this is a home game for Brighton, Lampard thinks probably they would try to take the attacking initiative, and it turned out Lamp's prediction is absolutely correct. Once Brighton chose to cooperate, Lampard did not need to deploy a 4-2-3-1 formation. He chose to play 4-4-2, a formation which was never designed to play possession football. In the 90s, the Premier League teams used 4-4-2 to play aggressive high-tempo conversion, and the key to the style is that it requires both strikers to be speedsters. That explains why Loftus-Cheek was put in the forward position. He is fast and tall, which is great in receiving frequent long passes made today. As to Havertz playing as the right wing today, you may say it is a forced move. If Hudson-Odoi starts at the right wing, there would be no room for further substitution. For this reason, I feel for Havertz because of his mediocre performance and lack of acceleration on the counter-attack today. Actually, Lampard had tried to help Havertz by playing James as a starting right back, but not their captain Azpilicueta, who is even slower. Conte fits well into the formation today, since Chelsea is not playing possession football. We can also see that Chelsea players have thoroughly executed this tactic by giving up possession, playing long balls and completing quick attacking attempts in the first half. Starting from the 20th minute, Chelsea didn't mind sitting back a bit to a compact defensive line, allowing Brighton to attack. However, as mentioned, Brighton didn't have enough penetrating ability against dense defense, and they have to pass the ball backwards all the way to their goalkeeper. That means that Brighton would have to play possession football in their own half, which allows Chelsea full court press to flourish. Brighton continued to cooperate playing short passes in their own half and did not give possession back to Chelsea by kicking long balls back to Chelsea's half court. In the end, their inability to maintain possession in their own half cost them goals and the game. I would say Brighton did not play wisely today. They experienced several changes in the midfield today and were left without their starting central midfielder players in the previous season. It was inappropriate for them to play possession football in their own half. The result was an error committed by Azelte, their returning loanee, due to his lack of understanding his teammates. Jorginho was allowed to intercept a sideway pass at Brighton's backcourt and made a through pass to Werner for a quick forward run, resulting in a conceded penalty. You can say Chelsea scored the opening goal solely due to Brighton's own error, but the fact is that if Lampard chose to play possession football today, Brighton would not have the chance to make a sideway pass in his own half and commit that error. Also, if Lampard chose to play possession football today, Chelsea attack would likely be paralyzed and ineffective against a compact Brighton defensive line. There would be no Brighton backcourt possession and sideway pass, which resulted in a Chelsea goal. A Chelsea lead would be also unlikely at the halftime. Worse still, if the Chelsea goal didn't appear and they fell behind to Brighton in the second half, Chelsea players would be discouraged and Reece James would not be so confident to attempt and make that long shot. Chelsea would likely drop points or even lose this game today. Therefore, Chelsea relied on Lampard's new tactic under limited resources and gave 3 points today by taking an alternative route. Those critics against Lampard's overall tactics definitely overlook Lampard's effort and tactical flexibility. I do not mean that Lampard is perfect. I'll save my criticism against him later. He indeed made some individual errors, but not on an overall level. The players executed his tactics well too. Lampard knew the easiest way to score today is to make use of Brighton's error when they had possession in their own half, even easier than Chelsea's own quick attempts on goal. So Lampard opted to go for a full court press with 6 players, including the 2 CMs, once Brighton had possession and made short passes in their own half. This was risky, but worth the gamble due to Brighton's crude lineup in the midfield today. After all, Lampard got his reward. The key to Chelsea's victory today is taking the lead at halftime, relying on Lampard's tactic, because as you can see in the second half, Chelsea conceded a long-range goal even with a compact defensive line, which was out of expectation. Without the lead, Chelsea would have fallen behind in the second half, which would put them in danger. With the early lead and stable execution of Lampard's tactics, all Chelsea players saw how Brighton fell for the trap time and time again, and Brighton was clearly being pocketed by Chelsea today. That explains why Chelsea players kept their heads high after conceding the equalizer, and eventually James scored an absolutely amazing goal. As long as your overall tactics are reasonable and heading towards the right way, players' confidence and form will be boosted. We cannot simply praise or criticize a player by their confidence and form without considering whether a reasonable tactic is in place. Otherwise, this would be an incomplete discussion. Lampard pondered and made the Barkley-Cheek substitution, changing to his formation into 4-2-3-1, only until Chelsea had retaken the lead and the team's stamina and press level had dropped. This is correct because 4-2-3-1 possession play retains players' stamina better, coming with an insurance goal through a corner kick. On the other hand, speaking of Kepa, it is his responsibility that Chelsea fell into some troubles today. Trossard's attempt on goal is quite sudden, yet the shooting route is well within Kepa's reach. We can see Kepa's problem in terms of his skills of diving save and his strength. This equalizer would not have happened if Kepa was strong enough with his hands. Chelsea would have carried on more comfortably without requiring the goals from Reece James and Zoma in order to secure the victory. Ever since Kepa has joined Chelsea, I've mentioned that the problem of his hand strength and hope Kepa will work for this aspect in the following years. Disappointingly, there isn't any significant improvement at all. Though my view has always been to keep Kepa more time, it is based on the assumption that Chelsea would not have sufficient money to seek service for another goalkeeper. Given sufficient funds, I would suggest them to buy another goalkeeper to compete with Kepa for the starting position. I will continue to criticize Chelsea for their own good, like what I did to Liverpool last season. After all, the Premier League title contenders require tireless perfection to every detail. Actually, there are some underperforming players today like Loftus-Cheek. I have explained the reason why Cheek started the game. However, he failed to seize the opportunity given by Lampard. He did display his speed today, but overall, he was not up to standard when compared to his striker partner Werner. In transition, Werner displayed his class in terms of passing and positioning of forward runs, yet Cheek's passing was below average today. As I have said, one of Chelsea's tactics today is to form a compact defensive line in a 4-4-2 formation, similar to Atletico Madrid. However, Chelsea's defensive ability falls far below them. Chelsea won the game only because their opponent was Brighton, and they only had to deal with high crosses and long shots. However, Chelsea still gave Brighton chances. The defensive coverage of Chelsea at the top of the penalty box is not enough. Havertz and Mount's defensive awareness need to be improved. Once, Mount failed to block the long short goal by Trossard. The two centre-backs were really shaky when facing high crosses, and Brighton's opportunity in the 58th minute almost resulted in a 2-2 equalizer. Therefore, I don't think Chelsea's compact defensive tactics were up to standard today. Risk is inevitable when Chelsea was without Thiago Silva. Lampard had clearly taken Brighton's weak attack ability into account before deploying this tactic, and hence, Chelsea barely scraped through. It remains, however, that Chelsea's defensive stability still needs improvement. We can be even more picky towards Lampard and ask the question why he didn't directly use a 3-4-3 formation today, since the CMs on the left and the right did not have enough defensive awareness. Either a 3-4-3 or 4-4-2 formation would not seriously affect the central midfield defensive ability. Yet, 3-4-3 will offer one more centre-back in the penalty box to defend against high crosses. Considering Rudiger and Azpilicueta are both on the bench, Chelsea's defensive will be more stable if one of them plays as a starter. You can still explain that both players are not fit enough to play as a starter. However, I suspect that Lampard is forced to play Havertz due to his high transfer fee. In a 3-4-3 formation, Havertz will definitely not be in the starting lineup, so Lampard would need to play 4-4-2 to put him in the starting line. Eventually, this is not a natural move because of Havertz's low speed in transition today. I hope Lampard can improve and dare not play Havertz when the style of the game doesn't fit Havertz naturally. I can feel for Havertz not being able to perform well in the right wing position, but that doesn't mean I can't spare Lampard in this aspect. This also explains why I have all along been conservative towards the idea of buying him. Even if the transfer is done, I still advise Lampard to play him with care, as he is not suitable in all the Premier League matches. Moreover, I know Liverpool fans may ask why Lampard received greater praise even though Chelsea won their game in an almost identical manner as Liverpool did by benefiting from spot kick and corner kicks. The reason is Chelsea is able to execute their tactics and Liverpool failed to do so. Liverpool wanted to play possession football and dominated the game against Leeds, and yet they couldn't. So Chelsea is able to realize their weakness and give up the idea to dominate from the beginning. They only want to play as fast as they could, and that responds to the problem today of not having enough high-speed players on the wing. Though Chelsea didn't perform well today, their overall tactics are reasonable and well planned. If they used wrong tactics, Chelsea would certainly drop points today. On the other hand, Liverpool had a full team lineup, but they performed below expectation and almost dropped points in the process. They were bound by the full court press by Leeds and were unable to take control of the game, and that was a tactical error. Liverpool should have fallen back to a compact defensive line, then they could avoid conceding the first goal, or even possibly the second one too. I would say this tactic may cause Liverpool to score one goal less, but then the result would be 3-1 but not 4-3. The danger of dropping points and receiving great criticism could have been evaded. Of course, as the reigning Premier League champions, Liverpool would look bad against a newly promoted team if they opted for a deep defensive tactic. That's why Liverpool was unlikely to deploy a reasonable tactic in that game. On the contrary, Chelsea doesn't mind playing the game as an underdog. The problem encountered by Liverpool would not happen on Chelsea, unless Chelsea are the reigning champions themselves. That's why Liverpool and Chelsea are on totally different standpoints at the beginning of the season. Liverpool should not win by luck, whereas Chelsea would hope to win by luck. Also, Liverpool had a full team at the start of the Premier League season, and the problems of fatigue of their starting players, combined with the lack of depth of wingers on the bench, had not yet been exposed. Hence, Liverpool must depend on a loss in the early stage of the season to create an urge to the board to fund the purchase of another winger. But now, Chelsea's squad depth is at a low point at the beginning months of the season. If they can win lucky games in the early stage and go through the hardest part of the season, with their full team members returning after 1 and 2 months, they would get a big advantage. So my conclusion today would be lucky wins at the early stage aren't good for Liverpool. On contrary, Chelsea does need lucky wins at this stage. And that's the end of the clip today, and I don't always need luck. What I need is your support. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next clip. Goodbye.